Yes, yes, yes. And we are live. I'm waiting on my friend Jazz. Jazz Shaw, the king of dolphins. I just tweeted the wrong link, but now I did it right. And there he is, the dolphin king himself.
Okay,
Welcome.
see, I was asking you about that, and I
Yeah,
I
it was because of you.
retweeted the wrong link. So
Oh, sorry. But I think I fixed it.
yeah, I just need to find that and delete it.
Oh, I deleted the tweet.
No, I need to find mine and delete it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see anybody jumping in yet. So,
Okay, I apologize for the delay, man, but we're trying to get this set up, and I'm not the most technically competent person.
all right.
So
No worries. I'm flexible. Are you? Can I help you?
okay, I deleted that successfully. So
Yes. My bad. Again, I'm going to introduce you, but there is no introduction needed for the Dolphin King, Mr. Jazz Shaw. It's a great honor and privilege to have you all for myself. Usually, people have to share you, um, but thank you for coming on.
it's my pleasure. I know you talk about all the same stuff that I like, so I'm very comfortable in the environment, and hope to have a good time.
Well, let's have a good time. So, sometimes I wake up here in Holland, and because of the time difference, I miss a lot on the current affairs in the United States. And like the last 2 weeks, whenever I jump on when I wake up, it's like I can't keep up anymore. There's so much new stuff coming out at the moment. It's just completely crazy.
Oh yeah, it gets tough. There's been a flood, and the floodgates have opened. I mean, I'm seeing people in the American news media talking about UFOs all of a sudden who have never mentioned it before. I see some of them. I noticed Chris Hayes, who's a pretty big name on MSNBC.
Right.
Um, he was tweeting some stuff recently, and it was obvious. And he came right out and said, "I've never even thought about this. I don't know anything, but here's some links I found that seem to explain what's going on." And he linked to a couple of good articles, but he was clearly just casting around in the dark. And now there's people like that are not making jokes, and they're talking about it seriously and more. Anderson Cooper on CNN did a really long, great interview this week.
Wow.
It's blown up, man. Like, all I can say is you're right. We're living in a strange new world.
It's a yeah. I think we are witness to new reality as we speak.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I mean, we'll hopefully know more on June 25th if the report comes out and if it's any good. But I do think we might be seeing the world change right in front of our eyes, and this is just blown up. Does that mean we're gonna learn anything significant? Learn the secret if there is a secret?
Yeah.
I don't know that, but no, it's a crazy time to be involved in this subject.
Yeah, it's also a weird time as journalists, I guess, because of course we can't, uh, you know, um, we have to stay objective, as you said, whatever this is, whatever comes out June 25th, we are, like, I kind of hope, of course, it's going to be exciting. It's not going to be earthly intelligence. But then again, I'm really curious what it could be.
If I had to level set my expectations, the most I would hope for would be the same thing that ex Department of Intelligence people have been saying, some people in Congress suggesting but not saying it yet. If the Pentagon just came out and said, yeah, there's things flying around, we don't know what they are, they're
Yeah,
not ours, and we have a high level of confidence, our best current assessment, they're not Russians or Chinese, so we don't know. If that's all we got, that's a win, Max. because now the door opens up for the next step of the conversation in the months and years going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not us, it's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese. Who is it?
What is it?
You know, and does the military have any hints about that? Do they have some clues? I don't expect them to wheel out a crashed flying saucer, is all I'm saying. Or, there's not going to be like an alien autopsy performed, at the podium in the Pentagon.
Mm. No, I can imagine. Did you, by the way, see the Obama interview?
Yes, I published an article about that. I thought that was cool. A lot of people were sort of blowing it off, but I've watched every one of Barack Obama's appearances where he's been asked about that
He
over the
denied
past.
it.
Well, mostly, yeah, he always joked about it.
Exactly.
He was on Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel. He's been on a bunch of places where he's been asked, and he would laugh. He would make jokes like, "Well, I would tell you, but the aliens don't allow us to talk about it, and they run everything." But then everybody's laughing, and you realize, he's just joking.
Yeah, true.
And this was the first time, and it went by quickly. It was in the middle of his bit, which wasn't very long, where he said, "I'm actually serious. There are documents and videos and documents." He wasn't saying, "I've heard," and he's out of office now. Nobody's briefing him on anything. So even back when he was interested in the subject. He saw videos and documents. Somebody briefed him.
Yes, and
Well,
I think
remember,
when
did Lou Elizondo leave ATIP? 2017.
right.
All the way through 2016, while Barack Obama was in office, that was when Lou was running ATIP. So who would have briefed him? I wonder if it was Lou.
Now, and there is a connection between Harry Reid and Barack Obama.
What is that connection?
I think Harry Reid was close to Barack, if I'm not mistaken, and endorsed him. And I think he even advised him on some things.
Well, he was Senate Majority Leader, until he left, on and off. They didn't always hold control. And he was in Barack Obama's party. So I have no doubt that they collaborated closely, that they knew each other. They're probably friends. I just thought you were implying for a minute that they both had something to do with UAP or something that I hadn't heard about.
No. Not that I know of, but I'm just making the connection. Because Harry Reid is of course the one of the most high level former politicians to speak out on the topic. Mm-hmm. But now Barack, told something or he disclosed something with a lot of smiling and joking, but there was a lot of information hidden in what he said, just like you just explained. Things he never mentioned before. And I don't want to run ahead of the troops, but they know each other, so it might be fun to maybe ask Harry about that.
Well, Harry's got a couple more interviews coming up that I can't talk about yet, and I know somebody who's doing one of them. I will pitch that question in there and see if he wants to ask and see what Mr. Reid has to say.
For sure. So, Jess, let's talk about you a little bit. I have a Dutch audience too, and I'm a big fan of your work. Jess is a journalist and a former military man. Can you tell me and my audience a bit about yourself and how you just, got into the topic?
Nutshell story. I grew up in farm country. I enlisted in the Navy after I graduated. I served just short of 6 years sailing on one old World War II class destroyer, and the rest of my time was spent on aircraft carriers back during the Cold War. And after I got out of that, I did some technical work because I was an electronics technician, which shifted into technical writing, which shifted into other writing, which eventually just shifted into going into journalism and not doing any technical stuff, although it does still cover the energy market quite a bit. How I got interested in this, I don't have one of those surprising origin stories that a lot of people have. I really loved science fiction as a kid, and of course, some of that included the idea of aliens and flying saucers and things like that. And I loved those movies growing up, and really all through my adult life too. I never had a UAP, or I'm sorry, I'm still just going to say UFO. That's what they are. We're talking about UFOs.
For sure, man.
I never had a UFO encounter. I've never been abducted by aliens, to my knowledge. I never saw anything up close. A few times, you see some lights in the sky at a distance, and you think, wow, that could be something weird, or it could be a Chinese lantern, or just a satellite or a plane. So really, and I'm over 60 now. I went my whole life having that interest until last November of last year. My wife and I
Okay.
saw 2 UFOs in 1 week, and we filmed them both. And one of them went right over our house.
Wow.
And don't get, I'll share the link with you later to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Don't get excited. They're nighttime cell phone camera
Too late.
videos. They're
I'm excited.
complete crap. They're total crap. Like everybody's cell phone videos. But we saw them with our own eyes. And that was nothing since. That was the first time. I was already interested and participating in online discussion forums prior to December of 2017, when the big New York Times article came out. But after that came out, it was in the New York Times. I approached the management at our network, and I went and said, this looks important. I know we normally write about politics and policy and energy and all that stuff. I'd like to write about this.
Yeah.
And it took him a couple of days to even get back to me, because it was that much of a sensitive, we don't want to look like kooks thing.
Right.
But it was the first week of January. It's what we always refer to as hangover week in the media. Like, nobody is watching anything. Nobody's, getting any traffic, because everybody's just, recovering from New Year's. And they came back and said, okay, we can try it. Okay. And I wrote my first article for the network on a major outlet on UFOs in January of 2018. It turned out to be the highest traffic article for the entire month.
Now, Jazz, a question.
Sure.
Did you ever tell your...
I think I just lost you.
Oh. Are you there, Jazz?
Now you're back. I just heard you say, did you ever? And then you froze.
Yeah, sorry.
So
did you ever share your UFO? Sorry?
Share it?
Yeah, publicly. Did you ever share your UFO story publicly?
I think I did with Michael and Luis once. Yeah. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure.
I missed it. Yeah, I missed out on that. But I think it's fascinating, though. It's fascinating, because I've had my first sightings a couple of days ago, and never before in my life. It's quite an experience,
Really?
And it's weird to talk about it. Yeah, I filmed it too.
Oh, we'll have to trade links later. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's shitty, like you said.
They all are, unless we get one to come out in the middle of the day.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I keep watching and hoping and waiting. I have this recurring dream, and I'm not a prophet or anything. It's just this dream that I have on a regular basis, that I'm out in front of my house. I live in a, 2-story colonial house out in the suburbs, on a relatively quiet street near an intersection. And in my dream, I go outside of my front porch, putting the dog out or whatever, and it's a cloudy day, and all of a sudden, a massive black triangle just drops down through the clouds, and it just hangs there.
Wow.
And I'm just staring, and I realize I should be doing something, but even in my dream, I don't remember to get my camera out, and try to start filming it. And I just stand there watching it, and nothing happens. No aliens come out, no nothing. It just hangs there, and then I wake up. So that's weird, but I've had it several times.
Yeah.
I keep hoping it's prophetic, and maybe every day when I go out, I always look up, just in case.
Yeah, I think when I talk to guys like you and me, for me it just started at 2017, of course. When the CNN news also, or the New York Times news also got a little bit of attention in the Netherlands. But I was just mind blown. I was like, why are we not now, like going crazy and wanting to know everything about it? But the audience, the Dutch audience, was so apathetic about what that was. But I just wanted to know everything about that, because I never disqualified the presence of these things. But there was never really proof, or it would get ridiculed. But when that hit from the Pentagon, that made such a big impression on me. And I've been asking to cover it, and it always got denied until a New Review magazine I work for. They just gave me the green light, and they gave me a big platform to write, and it immediately got picked up the day after. And the biggest newspapers, they keep writing about it, which is so that is so cool, and I have, and it's weird, but since that time, I've been feeling different. It's like it feels like there's this drive in me that I don't even have control over to cover this. I don't know what it is. I just can't stop it.
And it did take a long time because, like you said, December 2017, probably, if not the biggest, one of the biggest, best known newspapers in the world, drops that story.
Yeah.
We didn't see what we're seeing now. Not everybody picked it up. In fact, very few people did. And I still remember it was one of the other journalists who was already in the background interested, just tweeted something, and it was just like New Year's Eve or something like that. And I still think back, and I wish I could remember his name, but he tweeted, "Oh, by the way, the Pentagon just said that UFOs are real, and nobody gives a shit." And I read that, and I was like, "Dude's right."
And nobody gives a shit. Yeah. Well, I think that is just mind blowing to me. How can you not be just flabbergasted? And but it's a funny phenomenon, because you really see it. It's like it takes a long while, or it has like a slow way of getting mainstream. Look, the train is picking up speed right now. We noticed that. But it's I think people really have to. It does feel they cannot comprehend it yet, and they just stick their heads in the ground for some reason.
Yeah, I think there's now more of that in the general public than in the media. The media is coming around. Not every single journalist is talking about it, but every major outlet, every major network has somebody at least that's covering it, and in a matter of fact fashion. But yeah, I still see people when I publish an article on this subject. I break my own cardinal rule: never look at the comments, and I look at the comments, and I see the people that respond to me on Twitter, on social media after it gets published. And some people are always really supportive, like, "Hey, that's really interesting, thanks," or well, maybe I should look into that. But there's still a certain percentage of them that
Yeah.
just immediately turn around and they're like, "Why do you keep wasting space with this? It's impossible to travel between the stars. None of this is going on. These are just misidentifications, or people that are having visual hallucinations or something." And that's discouraging, but I'm seeing fewer of them than I used to.
Yeah.
The other one I'm seeing, and maybe I don't know if you've run into this, I don't know if this is just an American thing, but I was doing an interview yesterday, and they were taking calls. It was at one radio station in Connecticut,
Yeah.
and they were having listeners call in, if they had questions while we were talking. And this one woman called in and got put on the air, and she said, "You two," because we were taking the subject very seriously, and this woman goes, "You two need to go back and read Leviticus." And okay, I wasn't a Bible student, but even I recognized that was a book out of the Bible.
Yeah.
And she goes, "These are not aliens. They're not flying saucers. They're not technology. They're demons. And she was adamant that if we didn't agree with her, we were sinners and stupid. And she just, until the guy hung up on her, she was just going on and on. God has already given us the message, and these are demons. These are forces of evil, and you shouldn't be talking about them or messing with them, you know? And I was like, thanks for the call.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. Yeah. I think this has so many levels of what's going to change. Like you just said, religion. What the yeah. Everything we know. For true for as humankind is going to change a little bit. But yeah, you know that's when it's extraterrestrial, when stuff really is going to mess up our human history basically.
If that's what it turns out to be, and we should remind everybody, we don't know that yet.
We
We're
don't
still
know.
we're still just trying to figure out for sure there is something there, and then we'll worry about what it is or where it came from. But if it
Yeah.
does eventually turn out to be that, yeah, there are large swaths of the planet, and I'm talking more particularly Christianity, but other religions as well, that are founded on the premise that there was Genesis.
Yeah.
First, there was the Word, and it was humans that were put here. And if they've got the government and the science community coming around and saying there was a second Genesis somewhere else, and maybe a billion Genesis. What's plural of Genesis? Genesis?
Jedi.
Geni, genocide. Uh, you know that. Yeah, that's going to be very confrontational, and I think there's a lot of people that aren't ready to hear that if it does get said in some official capacity. And it's going to be a period of adjustment, and also still a period of denial until
Yeah.
somebody either lands a tic tac, proverbial on the White House lawn, or produces a body that we can check the DNA on. Until they have that much, they can still keep saying, "No, this is something else. You don't have it right. It's okay. There's something, but it's not aliens. There's just us. We're alone." And I feel very convinced that there's going to be an element of that long past our lifetimes.
Definitely, definitely. So me and you, we talked about about the biggest Dutch event, Soesterberg,
Mm-hmm.
and you,
Fantastic one.
yes, yes, and you were very interested in it. I sent you some information, actually written by my friend Alex Griffioen, big
Right.
SO Alex, and I'm curious. What did you think about that?
I'm still doing more background research when I have a moment. I'm doing a bunch of other stuff for the debrief right now on top of my regular job, so I haven't had as much time to do UFO research as I would like. But I did go into quite a bit of it, and I legitimately think if more people knew about that, if you ask somebody to go list the top 5 sightings ever of all time, that would probably make the list for me. I mean, the
Wow.
quality of the witnesses, the close range, the close nature of the craft, the amount of time, the fact that it was, am I remembering correctly? It was still daylight, or
No, it
part
was
of,
very early in the
I thought
morning, but
part of
I
it was
think,
in daylight. Oh, never mind. I'm thinking of another one then.
well, the UAP illuminated the whole airfield
Oh, right.
as if it were daylight. Yeah.
Okay. That was it. Yeah. I just think that's a really high quality one. Cause for me, when people, they always want to play that game and, rate your top 10 best sightings, and for me, it's, if you don't have video or at least a decent picture, which is the ultimate thing. Although those can be, fake too. It really is how long does the testimony stand up? What's the credibility of the people you're getting the testimony from? Does their story change over time? Was it just one person out in the field? Was it are there a lot of witnesses? You know, there's a lot of talk right now about Jacques Vallée's new book, where he is digging into a very controversial sighting, the Trinity sighting, which was before Roswell.
Right.
And excuse me, I'll be honest with you,
Oh,
that was
L'chaim.
never one of my favorites. Because you're relying on decades old testimony from two witnesses who were 7 and 9 years old at the time.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
we had 12 military men.
right? A dozen adult military men at a base, and
Trained.
it was a good sighting. And some of the older ones, of course, you can't expect them to be that good. But another one of my favorites, just for comparison, not necessarily military, but the Chicago O'Hare Airport one.
Oh, yeah.
From was that 2006?
16?
I don't remember.
No.
16 or 6? No, it was longer ago than 16. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, wow, they had ground crew, commercial air pilots, uh, just regular clerical workers at the airport, and tourists that were outside. I don't know if anybody's ever got a full count of how many people saw that.
Yeah.
The FAA shot it down immediately, refused to do any further investigation, and said it was a weather phenomena, and refused to answer any more questions. But that's another one of my favorites. But again, it's because the number of people and the quality of the sighting and the matching descriptions. That's what I always look for.
Yeah, I went. It was my brother's birthday last week, and he actually lives maybe 2-3 miles separated from that airfield, Soesterberg airfield, and I was a bit early, and it's only like a 30-minute drive from Amsterdam, so I made a spin towards that airfield. I went to check it out, and soak up the atmosphere over there, and it's like in a nature park kind of a thing, but it's very isolated actually, and it's so quiet. It's quite eerie, and but there's still barbed wires. A part of the airfield is now like a museum, but I think there's parts that's still active. So I walked around a little bit, and it was quite a experience. And what I find so fascinating about the witness accounts, what they described, and it must it must have been huge. If you take into account 40. Yeah, I'm a meters guy. 40 meters wide, and hovering, not making noise, and for some accounts say it shot off like a bullet fired. Some say it put down a beam, and there is the big rumor there were American nuclear weapons over there, and actually a Dutch newspaper it disclosed that it's supposed to be really it was true. Of course, this was Cold War time, 1979. But if you listen to these witness accounts, I think I've looked at a lot, I've read a lot, but it's just so impressive. It's just so, that must have been such a big event. Yeah, I wonder what is comparable to that Soesterberg case. I don't really know. Maybe Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, definitely. The 79 Tehran incident was pretty big. Multiple pilots chasing that for like 3 hours. That was another big one. But I think yours it's up on that level with Zimbabwe and Tehran. In quality, in duration, and number of witnesses, and how the story has held up and been consistent all this time.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. So yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know if it's number one, but I think it's at least in the top 5.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I might or might not receive something to see.
Okay.
So I'll keep you posted on that, but I've just I thought I'll put it out there for now.
Oh, you're going to tease it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's something that should be looked at, and I think Louis Elizondo, when I talked to him, he was familiar with that case, and he smiled. That this is not something that just stayed on the behind the borders of Holland. This went abroad. It got noticed.
I would not be shocked if ATIP had a file on it. And now, if the UAP task force has a file on it,
Yeah.
the question is, what do they do with that information once they get it? Do they just look at it and go, well, that was weird, and put it in a filing cabinet? Or do they send somebody in person to go start asking questions and talking to witnesses, talking to, or at least talk to the government of the country where it happened, and just go, hey, do you have something to share with us that didn't get out to the public because it was classified? Why don't we share data? And we do that with the Five Eyes network, the countries that are in that. They share classified stuff all the time. And so, yeah, and Lou has even insinuated that a couple occasions without breaking his oaths or getting too specific, that, yeah, they had case files from other nations that were shared back and forth
Definitely.
amongst our allies, and people were collecting data from our adversaries. There's actually a lot of material out there that the British Ministry of Defense picked up from Russian intelligence that deals with this subject. So the Russians were aware of it. They were confused, apparently, and according to at least one report, they had 2 planes that were taken out, and the pilots. Because I don't know if it's technically true or could be established, but the one source was suggesting they tried to shoot one down, and it didn't go well.
Which one was that? Sorry.
It was the British MOD has the document. I'll have to go look it up and find a link. I'll send it to you. But it was just intercepted information from the Russians. And the gist of it was, once it was translated, that supposedly, and it's not verified to my knowledge 100%, that they lost a couple of planes and the pilots when they tried to take a pot shot at one.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well,
No.
So I don't know for sure if that's true, but if that information ever comes out,
Man,
that would be something concrete. That would be really rock solid. Interaction, loss of life, loss of planes. Don't tell me it's a cloud anymore.
Yeah. Well, I heard of this American account in the Korea War. Have you ever heard about that?
Remind me, which one?
Well, the Korea in the 1950s, there is an account of American forces while fighting North Koreans or the Chinese forces. They are supposedly fired at a UAP, and it fought back, and it didn't go well for the men either.
Now I'm going to have to go Google as soon as we get done with the show. I don't think I've heard that one before.
Huh. Yeah, it's on YouTube actually. They made I think an animation about it even.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was the thing they were shooting at didn't actually fire something we would know like bullets or bombs. It was something that just made these men incredibly ill, and they suffered with weird, unexplainable sicknesses for the rest of their lives.
Kind of like those weird effects that we saw in Cuba, and now we're seeing around Washington D.C. with like somebody's using a weird ray gun of some sort to make people sick. I forget the name of that, but
5G. No.
Everything's 5G's fault. Yeah, it's all 5G. Oh man, I run into so many people that keep trying to say that. I'm just like, no, really, no.
See the chemtrails? It's 5G, man.
Yeah, 5G is the new chemtrails.
Yeah, it's reading your mind. So, yeah, I'm really excited for my interview with Louis this Sunday because, as you just touched down on, he did say ATIP was only looking at current events, right? But then again, he was familiar with, for example, the Soesterberg case. And he was familiar with other older cases. It turned out later, right? He even, I think, addressed Roswell. I'm not sure, or debris or something. But
everybody gets asked about Roswell eventually. If you show up on TV, you're going to get asked about Roswell.
Yeah.
And it's probably it's probably not one of the best cases in history, honestly.
No. But then again, Louis, he said, before ATIP, okay, my predecessor was OSEP, but then it was all the way back to Blue Book. But, and I asked him, well, did you ever have access to those files, Blue Book files or Grudge files? he said, no, 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 we were just, focusing on current events. But, he has been saying a couple of things in the latest podcast that he did was looking at older events, archival stuff. So I'm curious.
I'm curious as well, but it's not like there's that much current events going on every single day. You got to find something to fill up the rest of your time. And if they got you looking at UFOs today and you're starting to believe they're real, then how do you resist going back and looking at some of the really big ones?
Yeah.
Uh, so I wouldn't be shocked if he did, but we're still hindered because unless somebody comes along and they will release him from his NDAs and just go, okay, it's time to let all the cats out of the bag. There's just a ton of stuff he can't say, and he won't. And I respect that. I don't expect him to violate his agreements and put himself at risk.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. I really respect Louis, and I think what he's doing is so incredibly brave. He has been discredited by some Pentagon people in the last weeks. He he had the support of Senator Harry Reid, of course. But he keeps on doing this. He has a big drive. He feels people should be involved. This should be transparent. How do you? What do you feel about Mr. Elizondo? And his mission to disclose as much as he can to the mainstream public. What do you think drives him to do this?
Well, I don't know the man personally, but I do know that he cut short a very secure career that he could have had for much longer at his
Yeah.
age. It certainly impacted his income, his retirement plans, his family plans, things like that. Uh, he was with To the Stars for a little while, but from the sound of it, he wasn't really getting cut in on the entertainment end of the business, like making all the TV shows and stuff, although he appeared in them. So I will say, I don't think he's doing it to get rich. I don't think he's doing it to get famous. Like, it took a long while for him to even start doing a lot more interviews because he frequently just said, I hate being on TV. I spent my whole life in the shadows as an intelligence operative,
Yeah.
and now suddenly I'm on CNN, I don't think that's it. I honestly think I don't doubt his story is all I'm saying. He has said repeatedly he grew frustrated. He was given a job to do and not given the tools to do it, and not given access to the people who could give him the tools to do it.
Yeah.
And the more he learned, the more he realized how potentially important this was, that it could be a national security threat. He spent his whole life serving his country. And finally, one day, he just tore up the papers and said, I'm going to go find a way to do this on my own. And I honestly believe that's what he's doing. If he had done that, and it didn't happen at the same time that To the Stars had come along with their rock star lead guy and the money they were raising, I don't know if we would have ever. He might have just been out there in the wilderness, starting a Facebook page, and nobody would have heard of him and said, or if they did, who's this crackpot?
Yeah.
So I think it was sort of fortuitous that those two things were happening at the same time, and that those guys hooked up, and through that interface that they had, he was getting the job done, and then got enough of a platform that he was able to walk away from TTSA and shake hands and wish them luck and everything, and go pursue his own thing. And I'm impressed, and I'm not one of the doubters. I think Lou Elizondo is the real deal.
And what do you think about the Inspector General now being involved? Because I do think, indirectly, Lou is putting a lot of pressure on the Pentagon or the DoD or the American politics, by, speaking out about this, and, left and right, new footage pops up, and they recognize it as real. So there is a tactic, I think, of pressuring the American politics, the American military, to come out and undoubtedly say, we don't know what it is. This is definitely a UAP, unidentified. So this works, and I think Mr. Elizondo, is in, on a mission, that is incredible. He's compromising a lot, I think, for himself. You just said that. Yeah.
As far as the Inspector General's office, I've seen a lot of people making a big deal out of this, and it may indeed, maybe, might turn out to be. My take on it is not quite the same. I'm not even so entirely sure that it's definitely a good thing for the ufology community because, and I say that having worked both in the military and in government positions, um, you have to understand what the job of the Inspector General's office is. There's an Inspector General for every department, and there's a law that
Yeah.
made sure you had to have one for every department, and nobody ever wants to get an email or a phone call from the Inspector General's office. That's never a good day. They don't ever call to go, hey, would you like some cake? No, that doesn't happen. If you hear from the Inspector General and they have questions for you, you better be ready to answer those questions, and you're probably not going to like some of them. They do three types of things. They do prosecutions, they do investigations, and they do evaluations. This so far is an evaluation. But everybody is thinking, oh, the Inspector General's here. They're going to get the truth about the aliens. No, that's not what the Inspector General does. They work on corruption, fraud, waste, abuse, efficiency. If they've come in to ask every department that is involved with the UAP task force, and it was a long list of departments inside the Pentagon, long list, and a few outside, then number one, they rarely do anything on their own. It's almost always spurred by somebody filing a complaint, making an allegation. And we know that they were getting complaints from some of the senators on the Armed Forces Committee and the House Armed Forces Committee. What those complaints entailed, we haven't heard. We know there's one senator who said, why are we wasting money on chasing flying saucers? So it's not an investigation, so they're not acting like there's been an actual crime or something that needs to be fixed, alleged, but questions have been raised. And my opinion is the most likely scenario, either somebody made that sort of complaint about wasting money and they're looking to see if money is being spent wastefully.
Yeah.
They might be doing, if they read Marco Rubio's language in the bill from last December, they might have looked at that and said, oh, these people are a mess. Nobody's talking to anybody, and there's probably duplication of effort and all this sort of stuff going on, and people at the top aren't being informed, and not everybody, and it could be an efficiency evaluation. They could be asking for the information and then they would evaluate it and say, okay, here's what you're doing right. Here's what we think you're doing wrong and what you need to do better. Here's how you could do it better. And it could be as simple as that. The IG doesn't have a job to go find out if there's flying saucers in Area 51. That's not their job. If they think that the money is all being spent wastefully, that could be very bad news because that could be the end of the UAP task force.
Oh man, so it could be that, just following the money trail and see if it's being spent well.
Bean counters. Yep.
Oh man, that would suck.
And I'm not saying that it's just that's their job, Max, and it's a big part of their job. And that evaluation letter they released, half of it's boilerplate. They send those same letters to every agency. All the other IGs send almost identical letters with the same words. You just fill in the blank of what it is we're looking into. This time it's investigations of UAP. For somebody else, it might be how much did you spend on coffee and paper cups this year?
Right. Well,
on that depressing note.
Yeah, thank you. So there's more. Has been more media releases. In the last couple of 2 weeks, we had Mellon on Rogan. We had, of course, the 60 Minutes thing. I saw Rubio. I saw there's something with Danny Sheehan going on. Something. It's getting really, really big platforms right now. And what do you think of the Mellon interview at Joe Rogan's? I had a fascination with his right hand. I really focused on his right hand. It looked like it wasn't part of his own body and was breakdancing.
I will confess to you and your viewers right off the bat. I think I have watched 2 full episodes of Joe Rogan Experience ever.
Okay.
Not because I don't like Joe Rogan, not because I think he doesn't do good work. I think he's very influential. I think he asks good questions. His shows are just too long. I don't have a three. If you knew my schedule, I do not have a 3-hour block of time where I can sit there and watch and wait for the 10 or 15 minutes that are going to be of real
Well,
interest to
Joe,
me.
yeah, of
So
course he has.
I generally look for the highlight reel that somebody else posts. That's all I saw of the show. I saw like maybe 4 questions with Chris
Well, I
Mullen.
got a tip for you because Joe, of course, he has the full length episode, but he also has like topic clips on a special channel. It's called the Joe Rogan Clips, and you can just look at whatever topic you want to hear about, and you watch for 10 minutes.
Oh, well, I'll definitely look into that. That would be far more useful to me.
Yeah, he thought about that. That's why I really like his
But
channel.
wasn't Mellon on for the whole show? Wasn't he the guest?
He was the guest, but he cuts up the whole episode on topic with that same guest.
Oh, same guest, different topics. Okay.
Exactly. So in that 3 hour conversation, they talk about, I don't know, let's say the Pentagon, about UAPs, and like all those topics you can find in a 10-minute clip. So yeah, that helps a lot. Then we had the 60-minute thing. I thought it was very well done. The CBS thing, the same day, was a bit disappointing. How did you feel
Great.
about that?
Same thing. Me and Lou and Michael did a show Sunday night, I think, right afterwards, talking about 60 minutes after it finished. Everybody had pretty much the same conclusion as you. The CBS thing in the morning show. I'm glad they brought up the subject, but it was they were playing like the Star Wars band music and stuff, and
Yeah.
it was disappointing in that regard, and they spent a lot of time talking to hardcore skeptics and debunkers without much time that were with guests that were more open to the topic and knew a lot of the background information. They had Seth Shostak on there for what, like half the show, and Seth is infamous for insisting there's never been life here, because if that was proven, he'd be out of a job at SETI. So yeah, I was disappointed in that. 60 minutes, not at all disappointed, not a bit. Everything was
No.
handled smoothly, professionally. Nobody got off into crazy town or started playing X-Files clips or anything like that. All very serious, good guests, good questions, and we got our first really good look at Alex Dietrich, who is now
Oh,
on UFO Twitter with us.
yeah.
And I think she's regretting that decision already. Oh my
I saw
God,
I saw her.
who are these maniacs?
Yeah, no, I saw her pop up on Twitter, and I think she had like 250 followers. And I blinked with my eyes once, and she had 8,000. Then I blinked twice, and it was like going like crazy, crazy. But I think it's so incredibly cool. She came out and talked on 60 Minutes. And another thing blew my mind: women fly F-18s.
Oh, they've been doing that for a while.
I know. It's just, but this is, the first time I saw an American lady, on a big platform talking about her experiences as a pilot and about UAPs. I thought it was just badass. I
It
would
was
love.
incredibly badass. And I will say, I'm going to be running out of rail time very shortly here. Sorry about that.
No
But
worries.
Alex telling her story in real time, first time we're really getting to see her, not in shadow background or something like that, and hearing her
Right.
full name. That added, because I know everybody who follows the story, everybody's heard David Fravor tell his story hundreds of times by now, and it's been told by other people, but it's always from his perspective. Hearing the story from her perspective and how she experienced it adds a whole nother level to it, and it just makes it a richer, more complete story. And I'd never heard it from her perspective, and I gasped a couple of times. And she was admitting out loud, she was like, "It was my first year qualified for carrier duty on that jet, and I was kind of brand new." And so when Fravor said, "I'm going down," she's like, "I'm taking High Point. I'm not going down there, but I got your back." So that was basically her part of it, and she was so honest and up. But then she had the sighting; she saw it too from a different angle, and
Yeah.
it made it more. It fleshed out the story more for me, and I think anybody who hears both those stories are going to have a hard time coming away going, "Oh, it was a balloon. Oh, it was a 747 you misidentified.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
you know what?
screw you."
Indeed. And it's funny because people or our military, your military, have been seeing a lot of damn balloons lately, or all the time. I
Batman
think they're
balloons.
yeah. I think somebody has a balloon shop or something on sea at sea, or yeah, or there's like a drone sport club or something. No, people like Commander Fravor, Alex, other very credible military people, you know, brave enough now to share their experiences, saw what they saw, know what they saw, and are coming out. You cannot just keep on disqualifying very highly educated, trained people. It's almost insulting to say to somebody with such a training they saw balloons.
It was a seagull. You just weren't smart enough to realize it. Yeah, you're telling our Top Gun pilots that. I get it. I get it. We saw the same thing after the last video from Jeremy Corbell came out with the circular object,
Yeah, Boki.
and I saw two people that came out and were like, "Well, look at the size of it. It's a real." And somebody came up with an example of a really big balloon that's used commercially that can stay aloft for quite a while. And I'm sitting
Yeah,
there going, "Really? You're seeing the video, which is kind of crappy quality. There's guys on 5 different ships looking at these things, and there's 14 of them. And also, not for nothing, they're giving you in your headset as you watch the video and listening to the audio, they're giving you the meteorology report.
right.
The winds were blowing at steadily above 30 knots, gusting above 40. And there's a magical balloon hanging dead still out there, just hovering, that then slowly goes down and goes underwater. Like,
Yeah,
that's going to happen in a 40-knot gale? Really? Give me a break.
yeah. I saw your explanation on. I think it was Mick West who
Yeah.
said it was like a still image and it was a looped thing because of the wave. The waves you could see, and then you gave an explanation. It wasn't actually. It is the boat that's moving.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was
That
very.
story didn't make any sense. They were both moving. The balloon was
Yeah,
moving, but it was stationary relative to the ship. And somebody was like, "Well, we don't even know what height it was taken from." It's like, it was inside CIC. I sent a picture of the damn ship. I circled the window for CIC. It's right behind the bridge. I was on a very similar ship, same design. The CIC is always directly behind the bridge. And
yeah,
by the way, those are the only big windows in the whole superstructure. The rest is all portholes, and there's only a limited number of places it could have been. But it's like, well, we don't even know the height. I'll get you
yeah.
the height. Here it is.
Well, the only way I'm going to believe it's balloons if it's a dolphin balloon.
If I see a dolphin balloon, I'll be a believer. Yes, I'll
And that's
immediately
not
buy
my
that.
joke. That's not my joke. Somebody, let me see. I'm not gonna rain on your parade. Well, one of my friends here in the chat feed made that joke, and I just stole it like Carlos Mencia.
That's okay. I'm always willing to talk dolphins on every show I go on. People ask me, and they think it's entirely a joke, but it's really not. It's more
Oh,
of
it was Derek Dorothy. Dorothy. Sorry,
okay.
you made a great joke.
I uh, I use the dolphin analogy, and there's a lot of elements you can point to point out the fact that we don't know. Could be aliens, could be
Yeah,
Russians, but for all the data you have, could be dolphins. Prove it's not. You know, Dolphins are really smart. These things go in and out of the water. Dolphins live in the water. They've been around with big brains for longer than we have.
I hear
You know,
they're also Satanists.
they might not be Satanists, but they are rapists. Is that part of their hybrid breeding program? Because they're always trying to rape human women, right? Hybrid breeding program. A lot of people disappear at sea. They assume, oh, the ship sank or they get eaten by sharks. Maybe they're being abducted. Dolphins have an abduction program. You don't know.
Those, oh man, those bloody, rapey Satanist dolphins.
Yep. And they have, spacecraft. So they're really dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. We should open a Facebook page on that.
So long as you say there's something demonic involved, I can find you several thousand people that'll sign up on the first day.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Jess, what are you looking out for now? What are you working on? What can we expect from you?
Well, not everything is UFOs. The next thing I have coming, excuse me,
Bless you.
it's pollen season here, and we were doing the lawn earlier. The next project I'm working on for the debrief is actually not even related to UAP. I'm working on something on, I never pronounced the word correctly, but auditory. You know that effect when you see faces in clouds and things? It's
Right. Yeah.
herbidolia. I never pronounce it correctly. Well, there's an audio version of that when you hear things that aren't really there in white noise, in the sound of motors running, things like that. And there's so few reports about it, but it's so common. So many people experience that, and they think they're going crazy. But there are some people who did some research, which I've been digging into how it works, why it happens, what the underlying mechanisms are, and places where auditory specialists have had programs going to help people. So that's something I'm researching right now. I'll have something out on that probably by this weekend or Monday at the latest. And other than that, I'm just going to be hanging around with everybody else, waiting for the report to come out and waiting to see. I have heard rumors that there are a couple more big interviews dropping where some, I don't know how much or what it is, new information may be coming out. And it's also been suggested that we have not seen the last new photos and videos that we're going to see before the report comes out.
I
So
know.
we'll be watching.
I know Jeremy, hinted on, there's some more triangle footage, and not just a little bit, a lot.
If we ever get the ones that Elizondo has hinted about, he said a couple of times he has said he's watched videos that were more than 20 minutes long. So.
Sorry, Jazz, you're breaking up.
Oh, that's okay, because I need to get going anyway, but I want to thank you for having me on, Max.
Yeah.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, thank you. I lost you. Yeah. Oh, now you're back. Okay. Yeah, so my connection, I think, is a bit bad now. But Jazz, to be continued, please. And I'll talk to you next time. I have a really bad connection.
Okay. Well, again,
okay.
Thanks for having me, Max. I hope it was helpful, and we'll talk again soon. First, now I have to remember how to get out of
We'll
this.
talk again soon, Jazz. I just get snippets now, but thank you so much for being on my show.
Yep. And thank you for having me. So take care.
I just see your. Well, that was Jazz Shaw. The last part, I just heard snippets and a freeze frame. But to be continued, and I would love to talk to Jazz again sometime. In a couple of weeks, months. He does a great job. He's a very experienced journalist, and I really enjoy his input. That's of course why I had him on the show, and I have a lot of respect for the man. I love the way he approaches this, and well, my audience, thank you for watching. And this Sunday, Mr. Louis Elizondo, don't forget, and the 25th on Tuesday, Harry Reid. So stay put. And I have two more really cool guests. And I'm going to reveal those maybe tomorrow, not today. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.